evening, I'm Katerina Georgieva. Here's what's making news right now.
So our government tabled what is the most significant piece of legislation really in our generation in terms of gun control. And it's responding to, quite simply, Canadians want to see guns off their streets. Canadians want to see guns out of their neighborhoods.
I get it. I understand that, people are stretched thin, resources are tight, but you think that maybe coming out of a COVID, a pandemic, and with people finally being able to travel, you think that maybe they put a few more people, in the actual building.
I've been a diver since the early 90s, and early on I started getting in the river simply because it was one of the only places that you could do shore diving.
Thanks for joining us. If you need a passport, get in line. People are waiting for hours to get their passports renewed. Across the country, Service Canada is experiencing an unprecedented surge in applications now that COVID restrictions on travel have been lifted. Dale Molnar went downtown to see what people here are experiencing.
Oh, I'm going on a trip to the Bahamas, standing in my friend's wedding. My groomsman.
Eric Cavosi is among hundreds of people who have been waiting in long lineups over the past few weeks at Service Canada offices trying to get in to get passports renewed. When we spoke with him, he'd already been waiting an hour. The lineups and delays are an issue across the country, with Service Canada estimating it received close to 500,000 passport applications in March of April of this year.
Too long, way too long. We've been here for like an hour and a half, and they told us that they might be able to see us today.
Some of these people have been waiting for up to 3 hours to get into the office, but these are among the lucky ones because these passports will be expedited.
They will be getting their passports in a few days because they have upcoming travel plans. If you don't have a booked trip, Service Canada says to expect to wait up to 10 weeks to get your passport. The government offers an online reservation system, but several people say the site is overwhelmed.
Is when you try and make a reservation online through their site, it's impossible. You can't even get into their site. You can't call anybody. I try and call their number, they don't answer. So I feel like there should be like a better system.
And others are frustrated with getting information.
I've renewed my mom's passport. I've mailed it in, and I just want to know the status of it. It's been over a month now, and I just want to know what the status is, but I call Passport Canada. There are no answers, ever. They tell me that all the lines are busy, and then they hang up, but they never answer anyway, ever.
You think that maybe they put a few more people, in the actual building and start processing some of these applications maybe.
Last week, the federal government announced Service Canada has hired 600 new employees just to process passport applications. Remember Eric? He came out 4 hours later.
All good. Said it's going to come by June 14th. It's going to come by mail, so all good. I'll be at that wedding in the Bahamas. You know what? A lot of people probably are complaining and stuff. I don't think it's that bad. It's backed up. It's going to be backed up the way it was. But as long as you make a day out of it, you stay positive, you'll be good,
And patience is now one of the requirements if someone wants a passport. Dale Molnar, CBC News, Windsor.
If high gas prices weren't enough, try no gas. Some Shell stations in southern Ontario are tapped out, including at least 2 here in Windsor. A spokesperson with Shell says the situation is temporary, adding it's a result of high customer demand combined with supply disruptions from recent storms. The energy giant says it's working hard to address these shortages. The local United Way is expanding its Prosper Us programs to include elementary students. It's intended to support kids in need from cradle to career. And today it launched the Ignite Academy, a new out-of-school solution designed to improve math and literacy skills for children between grades 2 and 7.
1, go!
So exciting. So the program is planned to be delivered to over 360 students in Windsor and Essex County. It is the first big solution that Prosper Us is announcing, and we're all very excited to come together here today and to make this announcement and to see how the program unfolds.
In the past, our after-school programs really weren't providing the things that were required in order to help move the needle on academic achievement, help move the needle on, career mentoring and social skill development, just to name a few. And so this Ignite Academy now, after many hours of talking to parents and youth, is designed to hit all of the mark on all the issues that are the barriers that kids are experiencing. So we're really, really excited about it. And, you know, all of the partners that have come together to leverage their strength, this is what's going to be the success of Ignite Academy.
The program will support 360 students at 6 sites starting in September, located in both Windsor and Leamington. Windsor's first supervised drug consumption and treatment site has been given the green light. City Council narrowly approved the proposal location yesterday. Council voted 6-5 to approve the 101 Wyandotte Street East location and the health unit's application to the province to operate the facility. In January, Council narrowly voted to approve a location at 628 Goyo Street, but plans for that site fell through. The step is being taken to help address the region's opioid crisis. According to provincial data, there were 68 opioid-related deaths in Windsor-Essex in 2020. Liberal MP is promoting his party's new gun control bill, and he chose to do it at a local location that was a scene of gun violence. The scene may resonate with residents, but it doesn't mean there's local buy-in to the bill. Jacob Barker is on this story tonight and joins us live. Jacob, what are people saying?
Well, Katerina, I'm here at Super Bowl Lanes in Forest Glade, and it's the site of a recent shooting here. And this is also where MP Eric Kuzmierczak was earlier in the day, promoting that Liberal bill to put those regulations on handguns. And it is also being made in the wake of that terrible tragedy that happened in the United States.
You're seeing a government in the U.S. that is literally paralyzed. They're not moving, they're gridlocked, they're not taking any action on gun crime. We're taking a different approach. We're taking a proactive, aggressive approach to limit guns, handguns, assault-style rifles in our community, and addressing the root causes of gun violence across Canada.
Why is it that we never speak about the behavior, the violent thinking, and the actions that take someone to that point? There's where our efforts have got to turn. Forget about making it harder for the law-abiding gun owner to do what he likes to do on the weekend.
Mike Jenner is a long gun owner, but says the Liberal Party should leave handgun regulation alone.
No law-abiding gun owner will argue with good background checks and safe storage and all of the laws that we currently have in place. No one would argue with any of those things. But to outright ban their sale and use, and again, so guys can't do what they enjoy on a weekend, that isn't fair either.
He says that government can take steps to avoid violence like we've seen on a more frequent basis in America, but it's not the gun that's the issue.
Let's talk about spending money on bullying or mental health.
Guns are readily available. With or without this program, these guns are still going to come through.
Even anti-violence advocates say where there's a will, there's a way when it comes to things like youth ending up with guns, and that perhaps the federal government should focus its attention on what's driving youth violence.
It's not a gun problem, it's a youth problem right now. And it's not just in Windsor. When you're looking at a lot of other cities, they're youth. When you're looking at London, they're youth, right? So why aren't we putting that money to fix the problem before people die?
Valenti says there should be more programming for youth and first offenders.
We need programs. We need programs that help with complex trauma so people can heal and people can grow and people aren't in that situation where they feel like they need to take somebody's life or they're in a desperate moment where they have to take someone's life. Mental health is crucial.
Now, that new legislation is still very much up for debate. It was just introduced on Monday, and it still has to pass both houses before it becomes law. Katerina.
Thanks for this, Jacob. That's the CBC's Jacob Barker live tonight. Just a couple of days remain in the Ontario election campaign, and the leaders are getting in their final pitches to voters, blitzing locations across the province. But as Lisa Shing tells us, one leader is keeping a low profile.
As Andrea Horvath made another spin through Ottawa, she promised voters a brighter future if they vote NDP.
I'm hoping that as people reflect in the next couple of days, they see the hopefulness, because it's not just about what's wrong and what's broken.
And she took that message to Kingston, Prince Edward County, Whitby, and Scarborough too. But Horvath isn't saying much about her future, depending on Thursday's results.
Once they make their decision, then that will determine what goes forward.
Liberal leader Stephen Del Duca was in the GTA today, also with a busy schedule.
Welcome to Oakville.
At his first stop in Oakville, he seemed confident heading into Election Day.
Ontarians are going to burst Doug Ford's bubble Thursday night.
Del Duca had several more stops and a rally in Mississauga.
We're going to keep working hard right until those last ballots are counted on Thursday night. I suspect we're going to see some surprises that evening, and that's what Ontario Liberals do, because that is the Ontario way. We work hard, we stay focused, and we deliver.
As for Green Party leader Mike Schreiner, he was back up in the riding of Parry Sound Muskoka, a trip he's made half a dozen times already, hoping for a win for candidate Matt Richter, which would double their caucus to 2 members.
He's not going to be the Green Party's voice in Parry Sound Muskoka. He's going to be your voice at Queen's Park.
Only PC leader Doug Ford kept a quieter schedule. He wasn't available for media questions today, and several campaign stops were cancelled, but he greeted supporters at a dealership in Welland. Lisa Shing, CBC News, Toronto.
Thursday is voting day in the Ontario election, and to take a look at what the polls are saying, we're joined by Eric Grenier. He's a poll analyst, a writer at the website The Writ, and he is CBC's poll tracker for this provincial election. So Eric, where do the parties stand at this point in the campaign?
Well, they're pretty much where they were at the beginning. In our poll tracker, we still have the PCs leading with about 37% support. The Liberals are second with 27%. The New Democrats have about 23, 24, and the Greens have 7%. So the PCs still have a 9-10 point lead over the Liberals, which means they're still favored to win another majority government on Thursday.
And more than 1 million people turned up to vote at advance polls. So what do you take away from that number?
It's hard to know if it's a sign that turnout will be up or not in this election. That represents 10% of people who are eligible to vote. In 2018, there was 7% who went out to vote in the advance poll. So it does seem that more people went out, but they expanded the number of days you could go to vote in the advance polls from 5 to 10. So it's not a clear indication of whether turnout's going up or not. Last time turnout was around 57, 58%. Personally, I'll be surprised if we reach that number, but that'll be one of the things to keep an eye on Thursday.
And do we have any sense of how many people remain undecided at this point?
Yeah, it is around 8 or 10%. That's what the undecided numbers have been in some recent polls. That's pretty typical. You usually see around 10% of the people who still say they're undecided, even when it's coming to the last stages of the election. The question for those people is whether they will make up their mind between now and Election Day. Some of them will, and they could be pretty decisive in some key ridings, but a lot of them might not make up their minds by Thursday and instead just decide to stay home.
And Eric, which ridings do you think have the potential to flip to a different party from the last election?
Well, there's certainly a lot across the province that will be worth keeping an eye on, particularly in the GTA. But in the Windsor area, Essex is a riding that the PCs are really looking to pick up. The New Democrats don't have an incumbent candidate there, Terrace Natashak not running again. Chatham-Kent Leamington is another one to keep an eye on. Now, if the NDP is able to win this, that would be a pretty big upset. But the Liberal candidate withdrew. And there is Rick Nichols, who is running there as a former PC MPP, is now running for the Ontario Party, could leech off some of the PC vote from Doug Ford's party there. So that'll be one to watch. But if you're looking at a riding that's likely to flip in the area, it could be Essex.
Well, we'll definitely be watching. Thanks for that, Eric. That is Eric Grenier. He's a poll analyst, a writer at the website The Writ, and is running CBC's poll tracker for this election. Another round of Voters Corner now. I spoke with a voter with vaccine mandates on his mind. He wants all mandates lifted and says it's the Ontario Party that's resonating with him the most.
It's an election issue for me because I know people, including myself, who were pigeonholed into making two choices. Either you get the shots and keep your job, or you don't get the shots and you lose your job. And I'm, I was very disappointed to see a lack of legal pushback from this. I mean, I can't believe that this is not like a bread and butter fastball down the middle let's hit this thing out of the ballpark issue for lawyers, for unions. Instead, everybody's just kind of like lined up and supported this. So I'm retired now. I decided to retire. I've had enough. Like I'm turning 67 Wednesday. So yeah, I said, you know what? I had enough of this stuff. So I'm out of here.
Let's turn back to other local stories. Have you ever wondered what it would be like to scuba dive in the Detroit River, or what items, relics, and other curiosities are hidden down below? Well, the CBC's Mike Evans spoke with a diver who knows what lurks beneath the surface.
I've been a diver since the early 90s, and early on I started getting in the river simply because it was one of the only places that you could do shore diving. So I've been a scuba diving instructor for 25 years now, teaching other people to dive. So diving in the river has still been something that is been a passion of mine. I'm one of the only people that does it.
And what are some of those interesting things that you've found over the last 25, 30 years?
The river used to be a dumping zone for everybody, so everybody used to throw their garbage in the river. So I've got a lot of bottles spanning from early 1800s all the way through till present. You can go down there and see every bottle known to man, so beer bottles and pop bottles from the last 100 years are scattering all over the bottom. A couple of guns, pretty old ones, pump action 22 from the early part of the century. The other one is a sawed-off shotgun, Prohibition era type weapons. So it really is kind of a treasure hunting aspect.
Now tell me specifically about these cars that you recently saw and got some really great footage of right at the foot of Karen Avenue.
Yeah, so I was given a side scan sonar image. It takes a sonar image of the bottom. It showed a really clear image of a couple of vehicles, so we just wanted to get confirmation exactly what they were. The one is a 1940s sedan of some sort. I'm not a car guy. The other one, I thought the taillights looked like a Thunderbird, a late 50s Thunderbird, totally encrusted in zebra mussels. There is a ton of zebra mussels down there. They pretty much cover everything. So a lot of times you bring a tool or a dive knife with you and you scrape stuff off if you actually want to see. Right beside those cars, there's actually two safes, two very large safes with the doors off of them. You got to wonder why somebody would be throwing old safes in the water.
That is so cool. We also spoke to Harbor Master Peter Barry with the Windsor Port Authority about this, specifically about what a person actually needs to go scuba diving in the Detroit River. He says you'd need a dive permit, a safety plan, and $5 million in insurance. And with that, let's take a live look outside there at the bridge and the Detroit River. It is hot once again today. That heat warning continues to be in effect, although we do expect cooler air come tomorrow, plus a chance of showers. Colette will be here after the break with more. Colette Kennedy is here now for a look at our weather forecast. And Colette, another hot day, but some relief is on the way.
Yeah, we are getting into that situation where things transition from the heat and humidity and come back down a little more comfortable. But Wednesday, we're working our way towards it, all right? So it'll let up from today, certainly. Current temperatures, and in fact, our daytime high, we're sitting at 32 degrees, not a record. The record from 1988 is 34, so not that far off, however. And of course, you factor in the humidity, and it feels like nearly 40 with that humidex value. And just kind of keeping in mind that there is active weather, but it's to the north of us, so generally quiet for now. After midnight, we could see things kind of changing here. The heat warning's still in place because not only does that have to do with the daytime highs, but it also has to do with lows when the lows are not giving you relief. So with our overnight low tonight, the heat warning will likely stay in place and then be lifted into Wednesday before we see that gone. There's some of that active weather firing up. There have been not only severe thunderstorm watches and warnings into northern Ontario, a large area in a tornado watch as well to the north along this frontal boundary. So you can see, look at all those lightning strikes firing up. Behind it, much colder air, very wet through Manitoba into northwestern Ontario, what we call a backdoor cold front that was coming through Ottawa, so Montreal was only in the teens. And then you see what happened in between, of course, is where the temperatures have all blown up. But really, this buoyant air, the humidity, the heat, and then that colder air coming in and undercutting it, providing the lift for some of those severe storms. Now, you saw that frontal boundary. It extends well down into the Midwest. So with that, as we get a little bit later on tonight, I've stopped it at midnight. You can see what's brewing here towards Michigan State. This will, a lot of it kind of peter out as it moves eastward. So it'll either track north or kind of peter out. And then when the sun comes up again, they'll fire up into eastern Ontario. So what am I saying? Isolated thunderstorms coming through, that risk tonight for southwestern Ontario, and then again tomorrow afternoon, the severe risk is greater to the east of us. So that's something to keep in mind, and then things will be more comfortable behind this and will eventually dry out, although a chance of showers even into Thursday. A look at overnight tonight, 22, tomorrow, 27, and there it is, where things are kind of back closer to seasonal, at least after that.
Thanks so much for that, Colette.
You're welcome.
When we come back, we're going to take a look at tornado season in Canada. Stay with us. Welcome back. The approach of summer also means the start of tornado season in Canada. But some new research shows Environment Canada is missing the mark when it comes to delivering warnings about the storms. The agency has set some ambitious targets for itself and says it continues to work to meet them. CBC's Ethan Williams reports.
On his farm northwest of Moose Jaw earlier this month, Rob Bean watched this landspout tornado touch down. But it wasn't a tornado warning that signaled a storm was coming, it was a crack of thunder. Bean finally received an official warning, but it came long after the tornado was gone.
If it can pop up anywhere, like it did tonight, you'd like to have some kind of notification rather than 45 minutes later.
Bean's experience with lagging tornado warnings isn't out of the ordinary. According to recent data from the Northern Tornadoes Project out of Western University, Environment and Climate Change Canada's warnings are falling behind its own targets. The NTP looked at tornadoes from 2019 to 2021, and it scored Environment Canada's warnings in 3 categories. The first category looked at confirmed tornadoes that were tornado warned. Environment Canada's target for this is half of all tornadoes, but the NTP found only about a quarter actually had a warning that a tornado was on the way. The next category scored how often warnings were given more than 10 minutes before a tornado touched down. Environment Canada's target is a 60% success rate, but the NTP found it happened just under 10% of the time. The final category scored how often a tornado watch preceded a successful warning. Environment Canada has set a target of 80% for this, but the NTP data shows that happened only about 12% of the time. The NTP's executive director recommends more tornado warnings be issued.
I know that sounds like that's a recipe for a lot of false alarms, but if you don't issue tornado warnings on storms that you think may be tornadic, you'll never get a forecast hit.
But Environment Canada says some tornadoes aren't clearly visible on radar, and Canada's sparse population makes eyewitness reports difficult. Wow. Ethan Williams, CBC News, Regina.
That is it for CBC Windsor News. For news anytime, you can always go to our website at cbc.ca/Windsor, and you can, of course, find us on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. Thank you so much for watching. Have a good night.